This morning, the GMA exclusive, more than 50 videos and other documents detailing strange objects in the sky, many of which the military can't explain.
Must emphasize that one must be found of credible quality and magnitude if a transition to peace is ever to come about without social disintegration. It is more probable, in our judgment, that such a threat will have to be invented rather
Now, the mother lode, the sort of the crown jewel of that kind of event is what has been planned assiduously since the 1950s.
Welcome to the sacrificed.
What I want to do, though, is actually get you to some breaking news that we are following. The information slowly coming in here as we take a look at this. Now, this is from the Department of War, and the breaking news involves the so-called UFO files. The War Department now releasing a second batch of those previously classified documents, videos, and images. Earlier this month, the Pentagon set up a website where it made public the first set of those once classified documents. And you can actually see some of the information that's coming in right here on your screen there. It kind of breaks it down for you. President Trump had said that he would be more transparent on the curiosity that surrounded UFOs and UAPs and said the public can draw their own conclusions. Now, the website war.gov/UFO, you can see it there on your screen, received more than 1 billion views worldwide since launching earlier this month on May 8th. That is according to the War Department just releasing that moments ago. The Pentagon added that these files will continue to be released on a rolling basis, and the department is actively working on the third release, which will happen in the near future. Now, this is what we're told here coming in from the Pentagon a short time ago. Right now, what I want to do is pop up some of the video right here because, again, we have been following all of this as the documents have become unclassified and we start to see more and more of the videos being released. Now, with the documents and information, photos, videos released in that first batch, we learned that Buzz Aldrin observed a, quote, fairly bright light source while he was aboard Apollo 11. A mysterious object, he says, made, quote, multiple 90-degree turns at a speedy clip, and a blaringly bright object doing corkscrew twists over the skies of Kazakhstan. Now, again, this is all information coming in that first batch, and now we're getting a look at the second batch of files. Not sure just how many there are.
We only need gaze back from Vietnam to today to see the extent to which these false flag operations, hoaxed events, exaggerated threats can stampede a populace and the Congress and the presidency into very dangerous and bad decisions. Now, the mother lode, the sort of the crown jewel of that kind of event is what has been planned assiduously since the 1950s, and that is a threat from outer space that is alien, that would unite the world around a military junta, a militarism, that would put all of humanity together, but against one or more extraterrestrial races. Now that plan, which they came up with in the 1950s, has been very carefully rolled out. I mean, this is, if you were to rank this on a scale of 1 to 10 of sensitive, compartmented intelligence, information, this is as high as it goes, 10. Now, I've had it confirmed, and it's going to be in our movie Unacknowledged. One of the people that's going to be in this movie is an Air Force Office of Special Investigations counterintelligence officer who confirms the false flag. Name, rank, serial number. Confirms the military's involvement in staging the abductions of humans, making it look alien. Confirms that he carried bags of cash to people in the mainstream media to influence stories and coverage of this issue. They have been wanting a certain acculturation around UFOs and ETs for the purpose of having the public think that it could be true, but they don't really know what it is. So right now, more than half the public, over this longitudinal, long-term psychological propaganda warfare program launched in the 50s, believe UFOs are real. They believe there's intelligent life in the universe. But that's about where the granular knowledge ends. There's not a lot of granular knowledge, detailed knowledge of what all this is. There's another category, and this is more difficult to understand, and that is electromagnetic assets. And these include electromagnetic systems that could optically, like a very advanced hologram, simulate an event. Electromagnetic systems that have been called popularly electronic warfare systems that are psychotronic and radionic that interface with consciousness and thought. And electromagnetic systems that can affect large segments of the population when targeted. Now these began to be developed quite in an advanced fashion by the 40s and 50s. And by 1956, it had been accomplished to the point of state-of-the-art.
And the first time that I saw any reference to that, I was reading some papers from the Carnegie Endowment Fund, and there was a record of a speech. Well, it was a dinner for Viscount Ishii of the Japanese delegation, the Japanese imperial delegation, in 1917. And John Dewey was one of the speakers. And the first sentence out of his mouth as I was reading this, I almost fell out of my chair, because this was in 1917. And he said the best way to cause all the people of the world to come together in one world government and end war forever would be if we were attacked by some other species from some other planet. And boy, that just clicked with me, and I knew that that this is just another scam. This is the age of deception. There's no doubt about it. And then 8 times during Reagan's administration, he inserted almost the exact same phrase into 8 of his speeches.
I couldn't help at one point in my discussions privately with General Secretary Gorbachev, when you stop to think that we're all God's children wherever we may live in the world, I couldn't help but say to him, just think how easy his task and mine might be in these meetings that we held if suddenly there was a threat to this world from some other species from another planet outside in the universe. We'd forget all the little local differences that we have between our countries, and we would find out once and for all that we really are all human beings here on this earth together. Well, I don't suppose we can wait for some alien race to come down and threaten us, but I think that between us we can bring about that realization.
Over the years, I've done a lot of research. What I've discovered is there's no proof existing anywhere that extraterrestrials are real, or that have ever visited this planet, or that they exist anywhere in the universe. There is not one shred of evidence anywhere. It's just an incredible deception. And I'm just amazed that people have fallen for it in the manner that they have, in the absence of any proof whatsoever. I mean, they cite hearsay as proof. It's a scam. What they call UFOs, these craft that fly around the sky, are real. But they're not piloted by some little green guy from some other planet. The technology is real. It's been kept secret, and it's been used to promote this concept that there's an alien threat to this Earth. The most ambitious and unrealistic space project cannot of itself generate a believable external menace. It has been hotly argued that such a menace would offer the last best hope of peace, etc., by uniting mankind against the danger of destruction by creatures from other planets or from outer space. Experiments have been proposed to test the credibility of an out-of-our-world invasion threat. Nevertheless, an effective political substitute for war would require alternate enemies, some of which might seem equally far-fetched in the context of the current war system. It may be, for instance, that gross pollution of the environment can eventually replace the possibility of mass destruction by nuclear weapons as the principal substitute for war. Are you beginning to get the message, folks? Poisoning of the air and of the principal sources of food and water supply is already well advanced, and at first glance would seem promising in this respect. It constitutes a threat that can be dealt with only through social organization and political power. But from present indications, it will be a generation to a generation and a half before environmental pollution, however severe, will be sufficiently menacing on a global scale to offer a possible basis for a solution. However unlikely some of the possible alternate enemies we have mentioned may seem, we must emphasize that one must be found of credible quality and magnitude if a transition to peace is ever to come about without social disintegration. It is more probable, in our judgment, that such a threat will have to be invented rather than developed from unknown conditions. Disarmament is no accident. All of these bills in Congress to take away our weapons is no accident. The intentional environmental pollution of our lakes, rivers, streams, oceans, forests, everything is no accident, as you just heard. These things were planned many, many years ago. All the bombardment of the public with movies about flying saucers in the 50s, right after the United Nations Treaty was signed and the UN Participation Act was pushed through Congress, and all of the incidents since that have convinced the majority of the American people that flying saucers are real and extraterrestrials exist, and that flying saucers are from an extraterrestrial origin. This is being promulgated in many ways, by television commercials, in the movies, in the newspapers, by creating incidents either real or imagined. I believe, because of my research and because of the extensive documentation that I've found, that this whole scenario has been created to give us an artificial alien threat from outer space. During the Reagan administration, he made 6 speeches, specifically talked about a threat from outer space by some other species from some other planet. 6, ladies and gentlemen. Why would the president repeat the same thing 6 times, tagged on to the ends of speeches by him? The speechwriters did not put that in the speech. Ronald Reagan added it himself. This was a powerful suggestion to implant into the minds of the people of the world that there really is a threat from some other species, from some other planet to this Earth. Now, you people out there have been ignoring the UFO phenomenon for too long. It has all the earmarks of the most successful, most sophisticated mind control operation in the history of the world, and you are ignoring it. What better way to implement a plan to bring about a one-world government than to create the possibility in the minds of the people of the world that we are being threatened from some other species, from some other planet, and do it in a way that if anybody questions it or challenged it or wants to talk about it publicly, that they are ridiculed. John Lear, welcome to the Hour of the Time.
Thanks, Bill. Nice to be here.
As you can hear, my voice is not too good, so I'm going to keep my participation in this interview to a minimum. And I'd like to start out, John, with give us some background, tell us who you are, and where you came from and what you've been doing all your life up to this point in as short a period of time as you can.
Well, Bill, I'm an airline captain. I'm 50 years old, the big 50. I've flown about 160 different types of aircraft in over 50 different countries. I'm presently chief pilot for a cargo airline here in Nevada. We fly worldwide. I held 18 world speed records in the Learjet, including round the world speed record in 1966. And I'm the only pilot to have ever earned and held every airman certificate issued by the FAA. And among these certificates are the airline transport rating, flight instructor, ground instructor, navigator, flight engineer, dispatcher, mechanic, control tower operator, parachute rigger. And I hold the PATCO Award, that's the Professional Air Traffic Controllers Association Award for Outstanding Airmanship, presented in 1968. As you know, I flew missions worldwide for the CIA and other government agencies. I've flown in Southeast Asia. I flew there between 1966 and 1973, and I've had a lot of experience in flying in Europe, the Middle East, Afghanistan, the Far East, Africa, and both Pacific and Atlantic Oceans. I flew experimental test flights for the Learjet Corporation and other companies, but I really liked airline flying, and as an airline pilot, I was what they call a non-skedder, which means a pilot that flies for non-scheduled airlines. And I've flown for about 20 of those over the past 25 years of my commercial flying career, which has extended over 32 years. I went to college and studied industrial design, but I didn't complete the full course. I went on to aviation as a career, and I was the youngest Boeing 707 captain to fly in commercial service when I was 28. I ran for the Nevada State Senate here in Nevada. Was unsuccessful in my bid, and as you know, my dad was William P. Lear Sr., who developed the Learjet executive aircraft, the 8-track stereo, and was the founder of Lear Incorporated, which is now Lear Siegler Corporation, a large defense contractor. I've done a lot of writing. I've written about airplanes and other subjects. I was Middle East correspondent for Combat Illustrated between 1975 and 1977 when I was stationed in Beirut with TMA, Trans-Mediterranean Airlines. And, my dad was really interested in UFOs and used to discuss it a lot to the great concern of the Pentagon because he was a defense contractor, but my interest didn't come around until, about 1985. A friend of mine who I had flown in Laos with came through Nellis Air Force Base. He was changing from the regular Air Force into the Air National Guard, and called me up, came over, and we had a few beers and started talking about where we'd been since we'd seen each other, and I asked him where all he'd been stationed, and one of the places he mentioned was Bentwaters. Now, Bentwaters, as you know, is an Air Force base about 70 miles northeast of London, in which we have a few planes and tactical wings stationed at. And this was supposedly a place where a saucer had supposedly landed in 1980. And I had heard about the incident, so when Greg said, Bentwaters, I said, oh, that's supposedly where that saucer landed in 1980. He said, no, John, not supposedly, it did. He said, I didn't see it because I was confined to quarters, but I know the guys that did see it, and he gave me the names of General Gordon Williams and Major Ted Conrad and Colonel Chuck Hald. And I looked at Greg and said, you mean this stuff is real? There are saucers and aliens? He says, well, apparently so. So I thought I knew a lot about secret things and secret goings-on, but this one I had completely missed. So I spent the next 2 years kind of researching around, writing letters, taking field trips, trying to find out if there was such a thing as flying saucers and aliens. And my trips took me to Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, California. And this was towards the end of 1987. And when I got back, I wrote what became known as the infamous John Lear hypothesis, and released it to a couple of friends of mine, and they released it on a BBS, and it was apparently downhill from there on. But essentially, what I thought I found out was that the government had been dealing with extraterrestrials since 1964, and that apparently we did have an agreement with them in which we would trade, we would help them keep their secret of their existence in trade for high-level technology. And that was the basis of the hypothesis. I'm not sure whether, in fact, that is what is happening. One of the things I've tried to do is file everything but not believe anything. As you know, Robert Ann Wilson says you are a prisoner of your beliefs, and I've really found that to be true, that if you get stuck in any one single belief, you're imprisoned that. Everything seems to orient towards that belief. So I've tried to keep an open mind on this, whether in fact there are aliens. I don't know that for a fact. Whether in fact there are extraterrestrial vehicles, I don't know that for a fact, but some of the evidence points that way.
Well, we know for sure that UFOs are real. That can be proven by a short trip of about 140 miles northwest from...
There's no question about that. The question is whether they're extraterrestrial or not.
That's correct. What kind of credence can you put into the sources of your information, John? I mean, who are these people?
Well, you have to realize that it's very difficult to establish whether somebody is telling the truth or whether he's a disinformation agent. In my particular case, since I am relatively high profile and have a famous name, I'm not sure whether that's a help or not, but I'm an easy target for disinformation. So to say that I have, the best of sources would not be accurate. I might have the best of disinformation sources, but I do have a variety of sources. Some tell me there are, in fact, extraterrestrial vehicles up at the test site. Some tell me that there are not. So what I say is, I try to file everything and believe nothing.
Mm-hmm. Well, my listeners are certainly used to hearing that, because my admonition to them is to listen to everyone, read everything, believe nothing until they can verify it for themselves.
Well, I think that's very sound advice, and it's advice that I try to follow.
Well, in a period of time when there's so much disinformation and manipulation in an effort to tear down the sovereign status of nations and bring about a one-world government, it's difficult at best, even if you spend all of your time digging for the truth, to really know when you've reached it. And I think everybody had better begin to understand that. John, what are some of the more memorable moments in your dealings with this UFO business that you can remember? Some of the characters or some of the stories, or maybe we can inject a little bit of humor into this before we get a little more serious.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to think. I think one of the more memorable times was when I first got into this and had read a book called Communion. And it was very interesting. As a matter of fact, I read it on a flight that I flew from Las Vegas to Cleveland. And when I got to Cleveland, I couldn't put the book down. And after I did put it down, I couldn't go to sleep. And for some reason, I felt this was something real that was going on. And I'd heard of this guy, Bud Hopkins. And I was based in New York at the time, so I gave him a call. And he said, yeah, come on down. And I went down to his apartment in Manhattan, and we sat around for about 3 or 4 hours listening to some of the tapes that he recorded of people who had thought that they had been abducted. Now, whether these were true or not, I don't know, but the people who were talking certainly felt it was true. Mm-hmm. And some of these stories they told were so poignant so essentially horrifying of some of the things that happened to him. It just made a real impression on me when I was first got into this. It's the first time I heard of these kinds of stories, and sitting there with Bud was, I can't say it was memorable. It sure was, and it made an impression on me. Another of the times was I was acquainted with a scientist here in Las Vegas. His name was Bob Lazar, who claimed to work at the test site. And one night he took us out to see one of the alleged test flights of these vehicles. He said it was going to fly just after sunset. This was March 22nd, 1989. We went out there, parked our vehicle, and sure enough, about 15 minutes later, this orange glowing disc rises up from behind the mountains and performs a few maneuvers and then goes back down. I thought that was pretty spectacular. Bob said it was extraterrestrial, since I have no way of knowing whether it was extraterrestrial or man-made. I can't really, comment on what it was. It was just spectacular that this thing came up, made no noise, and flew around at tremendous speeds, and then went back down. That was a pretty memorable moment.
I can vouch for that, and it is memorable when you see it. I've been out there many times and have actually spent weeks in the desert filming these things, and I've made 2 video documentaries of these craft actually in flight over the test site, and it is amazing to stand there and see them and know that this is a technology that's been completely hidden from the public, and it's in the possession of secret agencies of the United States government. And who cares whether it's extraterrestrial or man-made? I tend to think that it's man-made myself. But it represents a different science that could possibly benefit mankind greatly. And I think that it's a crime to keep this kind of a thing hidden. And they are disc-shaped, and they do things that are incredible. I don't know if you ever witnessed this, John, but I have literally seen them disappear from the sky. I mean, they're not there anymore. And then reappear sometimes seconds, sometimes minutes later, sometimes in the same spot, and sometimes several miles away. Have you ever witnessed that type of behavior?
No, I've never seen that myself, but I've talked to enough people who've seen those kinds of disappearances, and I hardly agree with you that we don't know whether that particular disc that I saw was man-made. There certainly are man-made ones that perform with equal speed and dexterity, and I have reason to believe that we were much further ahead in the late 50s than the public was led to believe when Vanguard was blowing up for every flight on the Canaveral pad. I think that we were very far advanced in our modes and method of travel. I have reason to believe that we were on the moon in the late 50s. And, one of the interesting things that Dr. Werner von Braun said at his retirement party in the middle 70s was he made a cryptic statement. He said, it's too bad Vanguard had to be the scapegoat. And I think what he was telling us was that he was part of a program that was so far advanced, but his name was associated with Vanguard, and all people remember is that thing kept blowing up on the pad, going up 20 feet, and exploding and toppling over, and I think that's what he was referring to.
Well, I think that was to keep the public's attention. It's well known amongst those who really do real research, and most researchers or people who call themselves researchers don't even know what the word means. But there are several references in several books and texts that are not well known to the public that disclosed the existence of a secret space program that even had a director of space and was administered mainly under the Navy, Department of the Navy, through DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. And the public, of course, was told that NASA was the only space program when in fact Eisenhower had established this secret space program by executive order in the early 50s. What have you learned about that, John?
Along the same similar lines, as a matter of fact, to keep it secret, I think that between 1955 and 1958, it was illegal to mention the word space in any publications in the United States. They were so afraid that the public would find out how far along they were, and only with the advent of Vanguard and that were these horrible examples of our technology were being shown to the public, so that they would think that there was no possible way that we could have advanced like we did.
Much of what you're about to see has never been public before. The Pentagon now releasing another batch of its so-called UFO files after they were declassified by President Trump. And this morning, we got an exclusive first look.
This morning, the GMA exclusive, more than 50 videos and other documents detailing strange objects in the sky, many of which the military can't explain, released in the second batch of the Pentagon's so-called UFO files. Inside never-before-seen video like this from 2024, the Coast Guard picking up this object as it flew near a plane over the southeastern U.S., and this taken by the U.S. military over Syria in 2021, following an unidentified object before it suddenly speeds off. The service member who submitted the video labeling it instant acceleration. Others seen flying in apparent formation. All part of over 200 files released so far detailing what the military officially calls unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAP, better known as UFOs, long an object of public fascination.
They want to find out about the UFOs and anything having to do with UFO or related material.
The files made public on order of President Trump, who earlier this month touted complete and maximum transparency, leaving it up to the public to, quote, decide for themselves what the hell is going on. In the newly released records, this video from 2020, taken in an undisclosed area under U.S. Central Command, appearing to show a sphere flying over a population center, the pilot getting a closer look before it eventually flew higher off into the sky. And this account from a senior U.S. intelligence officer just last year, describing seeing two large orbs flare up alongside their helicopter while on a mission, saying they were orange with a white or yellow center and emitted light in all directions. Fighter jets then scrambled to identify the objects, but couldn't, the officer recounts, then writing, the same orbs we had encountered were now chasing the fighters. We were virtually speechless after these observations.
After multiple investigations, the government has found no evidence any of these incidents are of an extraterrestrial nature, but military officials admit many remain unresolved and cannot be explained. And inside these files, there were some videos that certainly were not UFOs, like one of the government shooting down what was believed to be a balloon over Lake Huron in 2023. But a lot to go through here, guys.
All right, I'm sure that explains it. Everyone's convinced now. Thank you, Jay. Appreciate it.
Incident. But the cow mutilations of the 70s remain one of New Mexico's biggest mysteries. Now there's a new book about it, and the author says he knows exactly what happened to all those cows. News 13's Amanda Goodman has the story. Amanda?
Jess, the book was written by the son of the lead New Mexico State Police investigator. A warning, some of the images are graphic.
A lot of the cattle were found with broken bones. They were found with harness marks because they were being lifted in some type of harness or clamp marks on their hooves or legs.
That was life for ranchers in northern New Mexico in the mid to late 1970s. Cows were turning up dead, their carcasses mutilated, and no one knew why.
People need to know what really happened, and hopefully this book will set the record straight.
Greg Valdez is the author of Dulce Base, a new book about the cow mutilations. His dad, Gabe Valdez, was the lead investigator on the case for state police back in the 70s. The book is made up of his old case files.
The evidence in the book will show that humans were involved in the mutilations.
Officer Valdez's theory that government agencies were snatching the cattle for super secret Cold War experiments at an underground base in Dulce.
Ranchers would routinely see them at night, before they went to bed, and then the next morning they would find them dead in the field or the pasture.
Officer Valdez believed these government agencies returned the cattle to perpetuate the theory that aliens were responsible, to shield themselves from suspicion.
The more people look in the wrong direction and towards aliens and stuff that's not supported by evidence, no one will ever be held accountable, and it will just be a mystery.
It's a move Valdez's son says has worked for the last 4 decades, and something he hopes the book will put an end to.
Someone should be held accountable.
Some of the other theories about what happened to the cattle included alien abductions, that the cows simply died of natural causes, and predators were responsible for the mutilation. Valdez says all evidence suggests humans were the ones responsible. Jess?
Okay, Amanda, Gabe Valdez died 2 years ago. His son says he doesn't think the government will ever own up to what really happened.
And it's just an incredible deception. And I'm just amazed that people have fallen for it in the manner that they have in the absence of any proof whatsoever. I mean, they cite hearsay as proof.
Well, what about all of the alien abductions?
They're not abductions, they're the results of a tremendously successful and very sophisticated mind control operation, all of which has been in development. Well, they started working on those kinds of things since before World War II, but they have perfected them. On my website, I have a patent of a machine that can read your brain waves, can recombine them in a computer and send them back to you and make you think things happened that never happened. I mean, you can't get a patent for something like that unless it really works. You have to prove it to the patent office. It works, a patent was issued. And this is just one of the things that snuck by them that hasn't, because when people invent things like this, they're sucked up by the government immediately, and then they're put behind the veil of national security and classified, and then nobody knows about them. But every once in a while, something sneaks by them. And when you do these searches in the patent office and trademark office and in the copyright office, you come up with some real gems once in a while, and that was one.
Hundreds of people in the valley say they are hearing voices in their heads. And those voices are being transmitted by microwave or other methods.
Well, several viewers asked us to investigate what they call electronic harassment. KMIR 6's Angela Monroe joins us now with what she's discovered. Angela.
Electronic harassment, synthetic telepathy, voice-to-skull technology. Chances are you haven't heard of these terms, but after searching the internet, I found dozens of websites dedicated to the phenomenon and several Valley residents who say they're victims.
How much more can you invade me than to go into my brain? It sounds like somebody else is reading the book, only it's thoughts.
We're not having a group hallucination. This is actually something that's happening.
These men all live in the area, didn't know each other before the voices started, and say someone is playing mind games with them.
Mostly it's a lot of derogatory comments about whatever you're thinking about.
Only time I ever had a whole sentence, he said, "This is not about you," which just frosted me. If it's not about me, what the hell am I going through all this for?
Kevin Bond says he used to have a normal life.
I was living in the San Diego area, I was clerking for a federal judge, and I noticed that I was being followed by a whole bunch of people.
According to the websites, what Bond is describing is called gang stalking. He moved to Palm Springs to escape.
I started hearing, as you'll hear, hearing voices, and what they'll call voice-to-skull or microwave hearing.
Bob Stansfield says his experience was similar and started a decade ago.
They were active in following me around here, and I started hearing the voices a little bit after the vehicular stalking.
Randall Ringer says the voices started when he was undergoing chemotherapy.
The first thing that was said was, "Randall Ringer." And I sat up straight and I went to into the bathroom, and I looked in the mirror, looked myself in the eyes, and I said, did that really happen?
Our technology were being shown to the public so that they would think that there was no possible way that we could have advanced like we did. And so I agree with you. There certainly was a secret program going on at that time.
Well, what brings the development of technology really home to me is my great-grandmother, who was no longer living, but I remember as a boy she would tell me stories of her trip across the United States from the East Coast in a covered wagon, and her first home on the West Texas prairie was a dugout with a sod roof, and she told me stories of the Indian Wars and all kinds of things, and she lived to see the development of the Boeing 707 and all the modern accoutrements of our society today. And I was always dumbstruck by this. I just could not imagine how people who went through that much of a transition in technology in their life could even keep their sanity, much less understand what was happening. Your father made a lot of references, and I understand that he was on a television show or something. Was it in the 60s, John?
The late 50s, in a press conference, I think it was from Colombia, it was from South America, that flying saucers are real and they were piloted by highly intelligent beings. Is this the one you're referring to?
Well, that's one, but the one I was more specifically referring to was the statement he made on television. Someone asked him, and I think it was on television, I'm not sure, John, correct me if I'm wrong, but someone asked him on television, since he was involved in the defense industrial establishment, just exactly where was the state of technology and what could we expect to see within the next 5 or 10 years. And the quote that I have is he said that you would be able to get into a phone booth in Los Angeles and step out in New York City.
Yeah, that's correct. I think that happened in the late 50s. It was a television or radio program. I can't remember what.
Well, isn't that's a lot of people don't pay any attention to that, but I know that this man, your father, was on the inside of the inner circle of the people who were developing the state-of-the-art of the technology of the world. And I think if he made that statement, he was talking about something that was either in the state of preliminary development or may have already been a reality. But, of course, those of us who served in the intelligence community, I was in the Office of Naval Intelligence, and you've been connected with the Central Intelligence Agency and the Joint Chiefs. We know that in secret they're at least 50 to 100 years ahead of anything that the public sees as the state-of-the-art of any technology.
No question about it. No question about it.
And that's why when people tell me that we don't have a laser scalpel that could make surgical cuts like they find on these mutilated animals that's portable, I just laugh at them. I don't let them know that I'm laughing at them. They think I'm just laughing because it's funny. But I'm laughing because they really tend to believe that what they see as the state-of-the-art in the public sector is really the state-of-the-art of technology. And it's not at all. It's way behind.
Well, certainly if my dad wasn't, and of course neither one of us will probably ever know whether he was directly involved with that state of technology, he certainly had friends that were, specifically Hoyt Vandenberg, who was original director of the CIA, used to be around the house all the time, Jimmy Doolittle, who was definitely connected with the saucer program. He was sent over to Sweden to investigate the ghost rockets, and he had a very heavy involvement in the later years with the saucer program. People have asked me if my dad was involved in anti-gravity research. Of course, I was born in 1942, and we're talking about like 55, which would make me 13 or 14 years old. He certainly wouldn't have told me anything. So I have no knowledge of that. Talking with my mother, he used to make trips to Fort Huachuca. And it seems that Fort Huachuca was the central area for some very classified technology research, possibly having to do with anti-gravity. But that's as far as I can trace it. Now, if I had become interested in this subject just a few years earlier, I would have been able to talk with the chief physicist at Lear Incorporated, who was a guy named Niels Eklund, Scandinavian, and a very competent guy.
Is he still alive, John?
No, unfortunately, like I say, he died just before I got into this research, or I would have been able to find out from him some really good information. But he passed away, I believe, in 1982 or 83.
Well, I know that you've had some contact with some of the more famous or infamous, depends upon which way you look at it, people in the so-called UFO community, which I think is a misnomer. And a lot of these people who call themselves ufologists, which in every case is self-appointed and requires no requirements, no education. That's right. Right. What can you tell me about some of these people? What can you tell our listeners?
Well, it just seems that there's so many self-appointed researchers who spew forth so much BS about so much stuff that, you know, I've kind of gotten out of the field myself to the extent that I may give 1 or 2 lectures a year, that I no longer, as I did at one time, believe the public should be told, because I don't think they would understand the religious ramifications of what's going on might confuse them as to what is really going on, and I don't think they can sort this out or need to sort it out on a daily basis.
Well, that's assuming that extraterrestrials are a reality, which they may not be.
They definitely may not be.
Yeah.
Who knows for real who these are? I've heard many stories.
Well, I used to think that they were real. As you well know, I saw documents when I was in the Office of Naval Intelligence that said they were real.
And it's possible that they are, but there's also stories of people who have been abducted who have caught their supposed aliens taking off masks or helmets and
turning into military personnel. Yes, I've also run into those people also, and I've looked into the possibility that this whole thing is a tremendous mind control operation in order to convince the public of the world, the mass consciousness of humanity, that the Earth is being threatened by some other species from some other planet, which Ronald Reagan stated in 6 of his speeches during his administration, which is way too many times for me to believe that it was real. It's more like just putting it into people's minds. I've looked into the development of mind control techniques, and they are so far advanced that mind control is no longer experimental. It's fully operational. And from what I understand, from my contacts and from what I've been able to read in the leaks and the documents released under the Freedom of Information Act, that no part of mind control remains experimental anymore, and that they can literally remove sections of memory as if it never occurred and put in its place a different memory, as if they're running a movie in your head. And they can actually put in suggestions or orders to that this will not come up, you will not remember this until some outside stimulus is encountered, and then the mind is overwhelmed by these incredible memories that in actual fact never happened. In particular, I remember reading and studying mind control projects by the Office of Naval Intelligence, where they were actually putting together and ran an assassination bureau for many years. And these people who were actually the assassins were ordinary people that they would pick according to some standard formula, put them through the brainwashing experience where they would implant in their mind the ability and the desire to kill upon order. And they would go about their normal everyday business not even knowing that they were part of this until the stimulus was given to them and they were given an order to carry out an assassination, and they would go and do this. What do you know about all this, John? Are you there?
Yeah.
What can you tell us about these mind control programs?
Well, you're 100% correct. It works just like that. I was reading a book called Operation Mind Control just the other day, in which a guy asked for people, military people, who felt that they had been subject to mind control experiments. And there was a Air Force officer who felt that he was having some problems in later life after he retired, and it evolved from the fact that his whole career, or at least the 5 years that he thought he was stationed in Guam running a weather station, when he retired, he was honorably discharged, and he was shown a whole raft of commendations and medals that he had earned. And there was no explanation for that, and he said, can I have those? And they said, no, these will be withheld until you need them, and at that time, you know, it will be explained to whoever needs to see these what exactly happened. So this guy obviously did a lot more than he was aware of. Up at the Nevada test site, certainly this mind control works to a great degree, whereas people can remember flying up and flying back, but they can't remember what they did. The mind control is so advanced that it doesn't, they have it to the point where it doesn't bother people when they come back, say, to Las Vegas, and they interact with their children and their wives and lead a normal daily life. They don't question that they can't remember what they did. It's highly, highly advanced. We were working with an engineer, a female engineer who worked with Lockheed, who was having just a little bit of problem because she couldn't remember a lot of what she did during the day. And I think that they were not too successful in the mind control program there because she did realize that there were things going on. But it is highly, highly evolved. People would be just shocked to know how far advanced it has become.
When I first started my crusade, I guess that's what you can call it, to try to wake people up, I had a tremendous faith in the American people that all that had to happen was for someone to open their eyes and show them that the normal everyday world that they live in is really a fantasy land, and then they would sort of take it from there, and it's not happening. A lot of people are wakening up. I have to give those people credit because back in 1988, 1987, when I first was looking around, in 1988 when I first came public with what I knew, sometimes I would travel 1,000 miles to sit in the living room and talk to 3 people, if I could find 3 people that wanted to sit in the living room and listen to what I had to say. And now, when I go to a city, sometimes I can fill places as large as the Salt Dome with people who are interested in wanting to know what's happening. But when you consider how many people are there and how many people in the city aren't interested and don't want to know, then it doesn't look like such a big accomplishment. Do you think we're going to wake up this country? Do you think we're going to affect any kind of a change at all?
I don't think so, Bill, but, I applaud the people who go out there and try. I don't try anymore because I've found that people are satisfied with the information that they receive reading the paper in the morning, listening to Dan Rather on the news at 5 o'clock, and then watching Wheel of Fortune at 7:30. And most people are satisfied that they get about all they need to know from that kind of information. It's discouraging because there's some great, great human beings that would like to make a change. But I just have to say that I am not an optimist at this point.
Well, I'm slowly getting to that not an optimist point also, but I have to keep trying. Every time I look at my little daughter, I can't stop trying to make this a better world because I know that if I fail, she's going to be somebody's property. And that's what's coming. I'm convinced of it. Everything, all the research that I've done shows me that instead of going forward in our evolutionary path, we're at a point where we've reached the highest pinnacle of all man's striving throughout history, where with the establishment of this nation, man actually became a sovereign king in his own right, able to walk in a divine state of grace on this earth that God gave us. And no time in history had that ever been true before. And it still isn't true today in any other nation on this earth except this country, the United States of America. And what I see in the future is a step backward, back into slavery, in a totalitarian socialist world government. And all of these things that are happening around us, I see leading us right into that, including the election of Mr. Rhodes Scholar Clinton here. Is just a continuation along that path.
Correct in that, and I wish there was something we could do, but I'm not sure what it is. I certainly applaud your efforts to continue on and try and do something, but I've more or less given up myself. If you could show me the path of how we could affect the numbers of people we would have to do in the short time we have to make a difference, I would certainly rally behind you.
Well, time is short. It's so short that people call me and they write me letters, and they one woman wrote me a letter, and it was about 6 pages long, and it was all about her being upset with me because I had said that most Americans are stupid over the radio, and I use that term quite often because I've found that most Americans are stupid, and the definition of that word is mentally crippled. In many cases, it's not their fault that they're stupid, but nevertheless, they are. And she was so upset with that word that I knew that I had reached her and had made her angry enough that maybe she would begin to look at it, even though she was voicing great displeasure about it. You see, it's my theory that if I say Americans are stupid over the radio, only the stupid Americans will get angry when they hear it.
I would prefer to say that they're ignorant.
Well, it goes far beyond ignorant, John. Ignorant is when you don't know about something. You've never had an opportunity to learn. Nobody taught you.
Have the information.
That's right. Stupid is where you have the information and you don't know how to put it together. You don't know how to think originally. You believe what you're told all the time without question. And that's where most Americans are. They don't question anything. Nothing at all. And that is really bothersome to me.
They believe they have a free country. They believe they have a democracy. Most of them don't even know the difference between a democracy or a republic.
That's correct, and they don't understand that the increased use of the word democracy is leading us into socialism, because democracy is just another word for socialism.
Right.
It's where everybody has a vote, and the majority get their way, and they always vote themselves all the benefits until there's nothing left, and a dictator rises up to take over and clear everything out. And that's always where socialism leads, and that's where we're going right now. John, what are you engaged in now? What kind of projects are you doing now?
Really, no projects. I apply at 727 for a cargo airline. We have a contract out of Miami. We run fertilized chickens to Valencia. Other than that, I'm working on my garden as usual. You know, when you're here, I like to have the greenest lawn on my block, and I like to do all kinds of gardening projects. Other than that, I'm quite heavily involved in computers. I got involved in computers a couple of years ago, and I have a PC, and it's mostly to write. And also, my wife has a actor and actress casting business. We cast extras here in Las Vegas for the movies that come from Hollywood. So I computerized her business, and I mess around with that. But that's about the extent of my extracurricular activity.
Well, what do you foresee for the immediate future? You got any predictions for us?
No, as a matter of fact, I'd have to agree with the German interviewer who came over here and said that I was a great researcher, but a horrible prophet. Several times I said, absolutely within a year, some information is going to come out, and then I said in 1991, some information was going to come out, and it just never seemed to happen.
At the second batch of files, not sure just how many there are, but if the war.gov/UFOs website there has already received more than 1 billion views, you have to imagine they are going to get a lot more today as the information comes out. Now, this is from the Department of War, the Pentagon posting this, saying the Department of War is publishing the second release of declassified and historical unidentified anomalous phenomena, that's UAP files, as part of the Presidential Unsealing and Reporting System for UAP Encounters, which is known as PURSUE. The collection continues to be housed on war.gov/UFO, and additional files will be released on a rolling basis. Again, President Trump has said that he will be transparent about all of this, and my understanding is they've been working for this on years to get all of the documents together and declassify those so they can be made public. President Trump and his administration also saying that he wants the public to think for themselves.
President Trump and his administration also saying that he wants the public to think for themselves.